Good afternoon everybody, and welcome to the studio this afternoon. We're going to do a bit of carving for a couple of hours, or for however long I feel like. We'll see how it goes. So we've got a wing to work on, we've got a wing over here to work on, we've got the foot and leg down here and that foot to work on, and we've got the mountain spire to work on and the tail. So quite a bit. We're not going to get it through it all by any means, but we will see how we go. So let's start by getting a bit better light on things for me to see, and actually it's for me to switch my glasses as well. The ones I've got on are okay, but the ones I'm going to put on are better. Well, these days actually I'm going to have a look at Optivisor and maybe see how they would do for something like this. 84 guy, good afternoon, welcome to the studio this afternoon. Been having fun today because my wife saw the envelope that you sent me and was trying to guess what was in it. Okay, so we've actually, what I was going to do was just get rid of some of this material from around this bone here. Then that will allow me just to see if I can shape that bone. Carving off the edge, not a good idea. So we'll carve in from the edge. No, the last one you sent, the item that you loaned me, shall we say. Actually, she's upstairs as well, so I'm being a little bit cryptic. With the green post-it note, which doesn't say anything at all really. She knows you don't make jewellery, you see, so she's now completely puzzled as to what might have been in the envelope. Okay, so we've got, just made some space around there. In fact, I'm going to make it a bit lower. I'm going to make the wing bones, I think, really stand out a bit. So they stand really proud, prominent. Yep, she knows you she knows you stream games, and that I already told her in this envelope there wasn't any chain or anything like that. Okay, so I've now just carved down there, so I'm going to make this a little bit stand proud. So that's a V-gouge. I don't want to use that one. I want to use the U-shaped gouge. These little tiny ones are so small that you have to look carefully to see. I'm going to zoom this in as well a bit, because there's no point in it being 6 miles away. You can't see particularly what I'm doing. Not yet. She's never actually seen me stream at all yet, Eddie. Suggested it a number of times, but yeah, when she's sort of said that she's bored or something like that, but because there's always lots to watch on Twitch, even if you don't like games. I was watching something on Twitch last night, which I found to be quite cool, and it sort of is half of what sort of kind of interested in doing, and that was there's a guy who streams Train Simulator, Matt Pendleton. He actually works for Dovetail Games, who make Train Simulator. But what he's been doing in his own time is actually making a train control desk, if you like, so a bit like he's in the cab of it. But the bit that was interesting is what he's been working on has been what I call physical computing. So he's got there's a particular console, you know, like driving wheels. You can get the, what is it, the G27 driving wheel for Truck Simulator, for example, and there's a sort of a similar sort of thing for the Train Simulator. And what he's done is he's taken that, and with his own extra code, what he's also done is link it with some, for the Flight Simulator, Cytec makes some electronic instrument displays. He's got a load of those and another annunciator panel, and he's linked all the lot together with his own software on Train Simulator. So all the the indications that you get on screen actually appear on the desk in front of him, and the controls work sort of like you expect them to do, which I found really fascinating last night, because he was sort of demonstrating it and doing a bit of work on it, and it fascinated me, because for a little while I've kind of wanted to do something similar for Truck Simulator. I've sort of wanted to sort of get a bit more physical input into it, without not just the G27 wheel, but it would be nice to to put the lights on to actually flick a switch, as opposed to trying to remember the keystrokes and stuff like that. And so and maybe sort of take the speedo offline. And I've been working on some software which I keep not bothering with to handle some of that, but it was just interesting last night to see somebody actually doing it, because I find physical computing like that absolutely fascinating. But there is one thing, I guess, mind you, that's probably a good reason to run chatty then, isn't it? So that you can see when somebody does log in and is just lurking. Yeah, I'm sort of I won't say a sucker for physical computing, but I do I do enjoy the aspect of, and have done ever since I first interfaced anything to a computer, to actually, I don't know, do something on the computer and something physical happens, or do something physical and something happens on the computer. A long time ago, when I was sort of in the early days of me having an amateur radio license, I used to do a lot of teleprinter, teletype as it's called, over amateur radio, and I used to have a real old clunking mechanical teletype. Great big motor in it, electric motor in it, great big noisy thing, fully mechanical. And after I built my first computer, well, that's before the days of IBM PCs. It was actually more, it was a computer. I connected it up to this the teletype, and on the first day I first did it, and I was manually controlling it. I was just making a relay, and the teletype go click, 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 and I must have spent about an hour just doing that. Absolutely fascinated by the fact that I could type something on the keyboard and it'd go click, and I could type something and it'd go click. And I've kind of been fascinated with it ever since. Kitty Lames, thank you very much. Welcome to the studio this afternoon. I hope it continues to look that way. This is a sort of we've done a lot of rough carving now. With this starting to work towards final carving, but we're still quite a long way off. Okay, I think I probably want them to be a little bit more prominent than that, so we need to carve down a little bit more on either side. This one here is not bad. This one I think I probably want to be a little bit more prominent. So, and once we actually get up into the palm, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do up there at the moment. I'll smooth carve that in a little while. Last night. Oh yeah, last night. Is it something that interests you as well? Well, I guess you must do if you're wanting to watch it, AD Fall Guy, but... I mean, he even had it. He even had it set up so that when he goes into a tunnel, it turns the room lights off, and when he comes out the tunnel, it turns them back on, so it gets dark, which was kind of amusing. I mean, he's sort of built like a train console, or his dad did but I say it was just all the instrumentation and the physical computing stuff which fascinated me. I'd love to be able to do it actually. There is something completely different about controlling, you know, whether it's a train, a truck, or something like that, with a physical thing rather than a keyboard or even just a control, you know, a joystick or something like that. Yeah, it is a bit, and I mean to some extent. I gather they're updating the rail drive at the moment, but there was sort of some problems with it at one point with certain trains. But I kind of thought, well, you know, the Arduino. Well, there are others, but there is an Arduino. This is a micro. The micro has inbuilt the ability, because it's got an inbuilt USB port rather than an additional chip. You can actually program this to operate like a mouse or a joystick or even a keyboard or combinations of. And so, I mean, this is what I've got started putting together here. This is just for a general purpose thing, which I was thinking of running. I get if I play a game with WASD, my fingers, particularly my little finger, gets really sore. So what I was doing with this is programming it so this joystick, because you know, emulates WASD just as you move it. And for Minecraft, if you move it far enough, it starts running. And then just so I can just have some fingers on these to do sort of like the shift, or you know, E for inventory or stuff like that. But equally well, you know, I could program this to be a joystick, and therefore it could be the throttle on a train, or I could get a rotary, instead of a joystick, a rotary encoder, and then you know, use that as one of the controls. So I did think about doing my own as well. I do have a rail driver, but for certain things it's not great. So I did think about playing with it. But Matt's stuff was just cool. Sorry, Kitty Lames. I mean, switching subjects there, but. And I think the train simulator has already got the ability to interface to at least a single, you know, like a controller, like you know, the Xbox type controller anyway. So I could always sort of emulate enough controls on there with an Arduino, or if it was really not fast enough for it, there are a couple of alternatives which would be faster. I think the Teensy is faster, and there's always some microchip parts. Actually, the hardest part isn't usually the electronics, it's the physical bit to actually mount everything and connect it up. Let's open the window, it's getting a bit warm in the studio. Now this wing membrane at the moment is the wrong shape until I get the other bone in. I'm not gonna try and carve it to the right shape. So I'm just effectively just creating a level nearby here, near what I want it to be. Actually, it was funny on Matt last night. If you get near the end, he tried doing something with changing the automation on his cab light to try and illustrate something, and what he ended up doing was crashing his lights, the actual room lights. He tried rebooting them, literally, but that didn't work. It was quite funny, really. The house lights crashed. Okay, that bone's not bad. It's still a bit of a sharp edge on it, but I'm going to do some more work on the others first, and we'll come back to this because I'm not quite sure how I want to do the hand. It kind of does, but what he did was he actually used the commercial stuff. I don't know if you've heard of them, but Lightwave. They're so. But what they've got is they've got a couple of things. But essentially they've got a radio controlled light bulbs. So all they literally need to do is just put new light bulbs in his current fittings, and then as long as they're switched on at the main socket, main light switch, then they can be remotely controlled. So it wasn't it didn't actually require much to put that in place. In that particular case, that was a relatively easy one for him to do. But I must admit, it kind of looked really quite effective, really. Go into a tunnel and it gets dark. Now I have to remember this bone is straight, sort of. But to all intents and purposes, it's straight. It certainly is on the reference image that I'm using. And as I've got it at the moment, this wing is kind of curved in this direction, so I've got to remember to try and make the bone straight if I can. Okay, I've got a little bit of a channel there, so I can carve away some of the wood around it, which will help me. He did suggest that he's going to do some more development work today, so he might be on later tonight. Again, Eddie Fall Guy. He tends to stream from about sort of 9:30 ish, I think, off the top of my head. Not normally at the weekend, but Monday to Friday is just streaming Train Simulator. I think his intention on Monday was to actually use this control desk for his actual Monday night stream. So that may give you something else to watch instead of my stream when you've finished yours. Mind you, he does go on quite late. He generally goes on till at least past midnight. Yeah, okay. Zagreb Dubrovnik. Ever been to the Balkans? No, unfortunately I haven't. Sorry, I can't say otherwise. Yeah, that will need to be carved down a little bit more, and then I'll do the other side of it. Carving on from the edge actually is quite awkward, just to get the chisel in just the right place that you want, especially if you can't see it very well. Which with a small chisel like this is can be a challenge, but especially if you need glasses like I do. Now, and just at that point there, this I was kind of struggling. I was really applying more force than I really should have done. But I just had the chisel in just the right place, that I didn't really want to change position. But what I should have done was back out, and it was probably squeezed too deep into the channel, and it was squeezing the tool more than anything, and I should have created some clearance around it. But oh, there's a lot of history all over the world though. Yes, I agree, there's a lot in the Balkans, and it depends on what period of history as well that you get interested in. When you get down into sort of the areas of around Greece, of course, you've got a lot of history back then, and get down into places like Egypt, and you know, they go back a heck of a long way. So any particular history of the Balkans that interests you, or is it just a general interest in the area? Some of the history stuff that kind of fascinates me is, you've got things like Stonehenge, which people built. Obviously they built it for a reason, and nobody actually knows obviously what that reason is. Lots of speculation and lots of people who think they know what it was for, just because it happens to, I don't know, let's say line up with stars at certain times of the year, but that might just be coincidence. And then you get things like the pyramids, which are dirty great big structures, and yet they've got very little inside them, you know, other than it being an impressive monument, why, in which to be buried, you know, why were they built? Is there more inside them than people know? That sort of thing fascinates me. World War I through the Yugoslav wars. Okay. Sort of fairly modern history then. Now this particular chisel is a little bit blunt. Kind of the blunt reference though being somewhat relative. It's more than enough, sharp enough to slice my finger if I'm not careful. So often people who have got an interest in things like you know, the World War I or something like that, generally have an interest in some aspect of it. You know, for some people it's the tanks or the aircraft or the tactics or things like that. Anything in particular? Liz at Seoul, good evening. Although it's early afternoon, well, late-ish afternoon for me at the moment here. Bubbles to Monkey. Welcome. Well, didn't you catch the show last night? I seem to remember afterwards seeing, a couple of hours afterwards, seeing you still still in the chat. But thank you. We're sort of in a middle stage of carving at the moment. We've done most of the rough carving. We're kind of getting towards the fine carving, but not quite there yet. Still establishing some of the more prominent details, really. In this particular case, the wing bones. On this wing, and then I've got to do them on the other wing as well. But we're starting now to, you know, I've done a fair bit of detail before where I've needed to establish shapes, but now we're actually working on what would be final detail of things like the wing bones here. Okay, I'm just being a little bit cautious with this here. I'm trying to keep a straight line, and I'm cutting across the grain, which is going in that direction. So what it's trying to make me do is to move the chisel like that, and I don't want it to do that. I want it to keep going in a straight line. Deno deserter, deno deserter da. Hi, from England. Welcome to the studio this afternoon. Oh, I see. You got an auto login. Zagreb, Dubrovnik, the uniforms. Oh, okay. World War I fashion. That's an interesting one there. Floatable prune 9. What do I plan to do with it once I am done? Hadn't got that far. There is, once the carving's finished, there's two things which have been suggested. One is I do some pyrography on it, which is possible. But the dragon is meant to be a white dragon, so pyrography would probably be limited to background and the rock. The other one is to actually airbrush it, and that would probably be sort of fairly block airbrushing, blue sky, white dragon, and then some detail on the rock. But much past that, I don't know, it'll probably get filed in the portfolio. I'm not one for having lots of things on walls and stuff like that, so I probably won't put it on a wall. Okay, that's not bad. That looks like a straight line, which is good. I'm carving round the edges of bones, and the bones are straight, so I have to just take care to make sure that I keep them straight in all three directions. So. What I'm going to do in a minute is create some clearance space just around the outside of there. I'm going to be a little bit careful because there's a bone I want to make just fairly close here. So I don't want to be carrying too much material away just in that area. It kind of like looks a bit like I'm carving in an awkward direction. I am. But you've got to carve in the right direction on wood, otherwise it'll do something you don't want it to do. And this is clamped down in a way that's not very easy to keep changing, so instead of rotating the wood, you'll find me moving in sorts of odd directions. Right. I think I must be a little bit more down. Especially up here around this joint of the finger. Where'd my pencil go? There it is. I need to move this wing bone over a little bit, so we're going to have something about there. And then I've got a bone on there, and that's the membrane. Okay. How long have I been doing this Merminator? I'm not quite sure. There's two answers to that, depending on quite what you meant. How long have I been doing this particular piece, or how long have I been carving for? This particular piece, actually I've probably been working on it about 2 weeks, so that probably amounts to about 28 hours of work, something in that sort of order, 28-30. And we're probably effectively, well, we're probably, in terms of the carving, we're about halfway through. We're probably about 3/4 of the way through in terms of time at this point. But how long have I been carving for? I think time passes so quickly when you're old, you see. Probably about 3 years, I'm thinking. Slightly less than the time I've been doing pyrography, but not much less. And I've been doing that, I think, about 3 years as well. Yeah, that one's a bit shallow. Let's see if I can start to define the other wing bone, and then that will help me position this one. Let me move that blade out of the way. Now it's got to be a straight line. It's got to end up a straight line, whichever way you look at it. A bit too far, that's it. Go there. That's close enough. We'll just move it over slightly. There we go. Now these two channels here virtually join, which is what I was thought might happen, which is why I didn't want to take too much material away just down here. Yeah, I've kind of got to do that. It will look odd if I only do 3 fingers on one hand and 4 on the other. What artwork do I do except for dragons? That again, I'm not quite sure of the question that you're asking there. Do I carve other things besides dragons? This is the first dragon I've ever carved, so the answer is yes. I do other carve other things. I've never carved a dragon before, which probably shows. Talking about carving, the last thing we did on stream was a shallow carved rose. So this is really shallow carved. This is carved on ash, which is quite a hard wood in all sorts of respects to carve. And this was done with hand tools, which is why it's really shallow carved, because this wood was tough to do, especially with hand tools, and it's why it's rough carved. The background is rough carved rather than smooth carved, again because smooth carving it would have taken an absolute age. And this one was then painted. First time I'd painted a carving, but looked quite good. But I have done some other pieces, leaves, which tends to be a beginner's project, which is why I was doing them. I've done some of the roses like that one, but actually sort of more relief carved than that one was. For an anniversary present, I did a fairly sizable board with a couple of intertwined hearts and a ribbon going all the way around it with some lettering on it. The lettering was carved with a high-speed rotary bit, so it went black. It carbonized, so there was some lettering on for the anniversary on that. I have a couple of knives in addition to the chisels that you see here. So I started trying to do some actual 3D carving as opposed to 2.5D carving. So I haven't got very far yet, but I've started a sleeping pussycat, and this literally is just the blank really. At this stage I haven't got very far, but just starting to create a shape with it, and that's done using the knives. This sort of thing, rather than chisels, although there's no reason why I can't use a chisel on it. I'm just using the knife. It's a good way of learning how to handle the knives, and also working with the knives. 3D figures, so true statues. Just started rough cutting this one, so just working with that. But in terms of what other art I do, then carving wise, I also do carving with high-speed rotary tools. Now I've got a couple of them here. I haven't got the third one. The third one's out in the workshop. But this is a high-speed rotary tool, effectively similar to a Dremel, but a heck of a lot more of a quality tool, shall we say. It's a heck of a lot quieter. It spins a little bit faster. I think a Dremel tends to be about 35,000 RPM. This is 38,000. But this takes anything from, I think it's about a 1/4 inch bit down to 2.4 millimeter. I can't think what that is. But what's in it at the moment is a dental bit. So this takes dental drills, or will take dental drills. It'll also take things a bit bigger than that. I have a big what they call a shaft drive, which is a handpiece with a flexible drive shaft onto a big 1/4 horsepower motor, which you generally hang up on the stand, which takes really big drill, well, burrs and all sorts of things, and has a lot of power. And we've then also got, I'll just put that away, I also have actually what is a dental drill, although this is a dental technician's drill. It's air driven, and this does take dental bits in the end, which I do. You know, this is really high speed. This is in the order of 300, I think it's 360,000 RPM. It shifts. And it rapidly turns wood into dust if you're not careful with it, but that takes, you know, as I say, dental bits. And I use that also, as well as the micromotor. Actually, I do flat glass I'll call it glass engraving, but it's surface engraving. So you create a picture rather than deep cutting into glass. Laser, good afternoon. Welcome to the channel. So there's that, and I also have done some carving with those wood carving with those drills as well. What else do I do? I do pyrography. That's using heated tools. Something like one of these, electrically heated, to create images, and I've got a couple of them here. So a couple of this case, a couple of pussycats. There's one of them, and there is a texture on here, a fur-like texture, which you can, if you were here, you'd be able to feel. And then we've got the other one. But that's animals, but we do other things as well. We've got I'll zoom the camera out for that. This one's a bit larger. So we've got there a World War II Avro Lancaster. And she's done on a darker board because it was a practice piece, was this, and this wood is hardboard, which is quite cheap. But you could also consider that this was this as a night shot, perhaps. So it's dark. So there's that, and working toward, well, another practice piece I'm just working on at the moment. Well, working on, but not actively too much, is a railway engine, which we've started. Again, it's a practice piece, so on the dark wood, but again, it could it just as easily be interpreted as a night picture. So we've got those. I also do scraper board, which is another white on well, black and white thing. Nobody asks what I do. It's a long thing. Most of what you've seen so far we do on stream, but there's this is scraper board, so it's effectively it's porcelain clay with a layer of black over the top of it, which you then scrape away. So this is a singer-songwriter from, well, he's still heavily involved in the music industry, but this is John Miles. And here's a piece. So that John Miles is the first time I've ever done this art form, scraper board. This is the second one, which I'm still working on, which is Earthrise from the Moon. Age is familiar with this. Kind of just showing you the stuff we're do on stream. This is another one. This is called Punchcraft. So this is a bit like a rug, made in the same way, similar way to what rugs are made. You use a needle, somewhat like this tool, which I'm holding with one hand, but if I extend the needle, it's a bit like a hypodermic, but not quite as sharp. And that's used from the underneath of this, pushing up to create loops of thread, which then form the image. So I'll just put that needle away, because whilst it's not as sharp as a hypodermic, it still hurts. So there's there. And that's all we've done on stream so far. Although we did build a helicopter, which is around here somewhere. There we go. We did build this on stream as well. That was just a one-off though, a quadcopter. I can't zoom out far enough for you to see the whole of that at the moment, but that was a one-off that we actually built on stream. Not likely to be building any more of quadcopters, although I do have, when I get a bit more space in the studio, I do have a 1/14 scale articulated truck together with 2 trailers to build, and I have a 1/12 Leopard main battle tank, which is half finished, which I can always finish on stream as well. But I'm also an airbrush artist, so I've got some airbrush pictures, but they've never been done on stream. But I do have some airbrush work that I do, well, have done. Again, I'm limited in space at the moment to do that. I also make cross stitch, needlepoint, latch hook rugs, punch rugs. And I've run out of, I keep forgetting what I do, but there's lots of things. I've got some fuse beads to do, and I've got another art form which is familiar to Adi Fall Guy, who I can't say at the moment, but Adi's just done it for me. Thank you very much. You're getting used to that one, Adi, thank you. So there's a fair bit of stuff there. I'd love to do more of it actually on stream, some of the airbrushing and the rugs and stuff like that, but unfortunately just at the moment I really don't have the space. My studio space available is really what you can see now in the on screen. But hopefully, given time, we'll make some more space available, and then you'll be able to see some of the larger things that I do get involved in doing as and when time allows. Right, now then, what I'm going to do is try and get rid of this ridge in the middle. Can I beg your pardon? Oh yes, no, we know you're not watching. You don't know I'm not watching. Well, I know you've got my wife there trying to intimate that she might well be watching the chat, but I think that's highly unlikely, given that at least one of the computers that she would use for doing that is sat next to me. And I bet she can't actually remember the URL. To which she just said she doesn't know what a URL is. So, if you want to link to your Facebook or Shop AD, please go ahead and do so. He does indeed have a shop. My wife is listening, you see, but I'm not giving anything away by saying you've got a shop. You've been making chocolate for years, haven't you, Adi? Beg your pardon? Her comment was all chocolate bars gratefully received. Right, I'm just trying. I created a ridge between these two bones here, and what I'm just trying to do is get rid of it, carve it down basically, but being careful not to at this stage not to carve the bones either side. Somehow I don't think it took much insisting, did it, AD? I bet you had that already prepared. So anybody that's watching and is reading chat, yeah, I do highly recommend you check Eddie Fall Guy out. The stuff he produces is absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, I can't describe it at the moment, but you know, check. Do you record your broadcasts, Eddie Fall Guy? If you do, check out his past videos. You know, check out the link he's just posted there, and you'll see what he does, and he does do that live on stream at least once or twice a week. So as well as the other things that he streams. So do recommend you check him out. It's fun. I can tease her with all sorts of things at the moment. Kitty Cakes 55. Hello, welcome to the studio. Yeah, but it just lets them have a look at a more recent one if they actually want to see an example, Eddie. That was all. Okay, so I've got a wing there now. Then all I've got to do now is try and carve in a really odd way. So I need to establish the other side of this bone and what would be the wing membrane between, because there's a bone here and then there's a bone right on the edge. And by the way, I was just teasing you, Eddie, about the typing. You know, it's all right. I don't mind. If anybody's cringing with me apparently carving this towards myself, don't worry, it is perfectly safe. There is little, if any, risk in doing it. Actually, you probably can't really tell I'm doing it towards myself because I'm off the top of the camera, aren't I? I'll zoom out a little bit. Fully zoomed in a bit too much. There we go. Because again, you can't really see, but what I'm doing is I'm only driving this with my fingers, so I'm holding it steady with this hand and just driving it with my fingers, and so I've got limited actual movement. So it's not like I'm pulling with my whole arms, I'm just pushing with my fingers, and I can only close my fingers so far, so I can't get anywhere particularly dangerous with the chisel. carve the other direction to get down here. The wood grain changes direction in this sort of area, which provides a challenge, shall we say. That's because there's a knot here, so this is the main trunk of the tree going across, but this is where a branch would have come out in one direction or the other, I'm not sure. And so the wood grain changes direction in sort of a three-dimensional pattern just in this sort of area here, which can make carving interesting. Rather like the Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. Now, carving off the edge, which is not really a good thing to do, but you don't have a lot of choice in this particular area here. And if you're doing this, a really sharp chisel helps a lot, because otherwise, as I'm doing it even now, you start to push wood fibres away from the edge, off the edge, and you kind of like the wood frays, for want of a better description. And that gives you a rough edge, which is not always desirable. Okay, and I'm trying to carve that downwards to create a slope as well, which didn't help because I'm having to. Normally you just have to control the chisel laterally and a little bit in the vertical direction, not much. What I was having to do coming down there was hold it literally in a position all the way down, so controlling in all three dimensions, because I didn't want it to fall off the edge or move too rapidly off the corner either. So it was a bit of an interesting time. Right, now then, what I'm just trying to do now actually is carve the side of this piece. What I really ought to do is unclamp it and stand it up in some shape or form, but that's not particularly easy to do. Kind of unusual to carve on the sides here. Usually all you'll end up doing with a relief carve is undercutting it to create a shadow line, so it looks three-dimensional, but the bulk of the material underneath the wing here, for example, stays, so it doesn't actually separate all the way through. It's quite unusual to carve the side here, but what I've got is I've got a wing bone that comes down into there and would be the underneath. So it goes down, if you like, if the tip's sort of curled over. And I want to try and at least make it look like that's what's happening, and that requires me to actually carve into this surface edge here. Which is interesting. Well, we might have to do some more work in that area, but we'll see about that later. Okay, I can now remove a little bit more of this wood in here, and then I can round off these bones. Which way does this wood like to be carved? Doesn't mind this way too much. Okay, I'm trying to carve from here to here, or vice versa actually, to create a flap, because this is bones, and the wing membrane is joined to the bones, so it's stretched tight. So it's actually not flat, but initially we're going to create it flat, which means I need basically to get a straight line between here and here in the wood, and then we'll actually apply the shape, because it's actually sort of a U-shaped, but we want to initially start with a straight line. I'm going to say, if anybody's got any particular questions, either about the carving that you're seeing now, or some of the other forms of carving, or about any of the other art forms that I went through in the gallery tour, then yeah, feel free to ask, I don't mind. Try not to disturb the wing bone at this point. I want leaving it rough so that if I just catch it with a chisel, I'm not actually going to while I'm doing this, I'm not actually going to sort of damage a finished carved piece, and it'll leave me a little bit of safety wood to do some manipulations with it if I need to do so. Of course, ultimately if I damage it too much, I will just lower the whole wing a little bit. Okay. Well, you could describe that as an apprenticeship lizard cell. I don't think. I mean, I don't think there is anything particular about it in a you know, that sort of job has a name that I'm aware of. Your father might know that. I guess in the UK, what you might call them is a gopher. Go for this and go for that. But that's the sort of thing that apprentices start doing, if you like, is passing tools, fetching and carrying things, so that they get to learn. If you're fetching tools, for example, you get to know what the tools look like and things like that, and then you sort of progress from there. To learn how to handle them and do the simpler jobs, and then obviously gradually move up to doing more complex things. I'm not actually aware of a generic title for people who do that sort of thing though, lizard cell. Anybody else on stream has any ideas, feel free to make your suggestions in chat. Yeah, you probably could do. Yeah, certainly. If you're talking about work experience, then yeah, I'd describe it as that. But of course, be prepared to say what that actually means in terms of what you've actually done. If such a thing gets questioned. Knowing what a left-handed screwdriver is, or a left-handed plane is, certainly, it's certainly often a useful thing for apprentices. because they're often in the UK, a left-handed screwdriver and a Birmingham screwdriver are often mean the same thing. By tool polishing, are you meaning sharpening, or are you meaning cleaning? Because in the UK, polishing is making shine, which may not be what you were intending. You know, and if you've learnt things like how to set a plane, for example, well, like cleaning. Okay. Well, I mean, you know, it's just no. I mean, it's polishing implies a certain thing. You know, tool cleaning can be described as about how to clean, how to look after tools safely, for example. You know, it's chisels are sharp, and you know, a bandsaw is you know, a dangerous thing. A table saw, a mortiser, a chisel mortiser, you know, a drill, all these sorts of things. Knowing how to clean them, look after them is a you know, good description of skills. So if your father has taught you how to do some of the things like set them up, for example, then you know, just describe it. It's something that, you know, it's not necessarily important to actually sort of write down everything like that in a CV, but if somebody was going to ask you to have an interview based on that CV and based on those elements of it, then they would be asking you, you know, what do you mean by cleaning tools, or what do you mean by polishing or setting up or anything like that. So you know, have those sorts of examples in your mind when you write it. You don't actually have to put those examples in there. That's just something for when you do get an interview about it, they'll be prepared to answer those questions without having to sort of sit and think about it for 5 minutes. Because one thing interviewers will look for is people who answer the questions confidently, which means you don't spend 10 minutes thinking about it, because then what they think about it then is you've not done it very often, or you've made it up and you're having to think of a convincing answer, as opposed to somebody who just goes, oh yeah, this is what I did. So being prepared. That wing bun is a little bit thick. So I'm just going to shave the sides to make it thinner. Well, don't forget, Lizard Soul, generally speaking, CVs, whilst you might have a generic CV, a CV should almost always be tailored to the job that you're actually going for, so that you can bring out the points that are relative to the specific opportunity that the specific job you're trying to get, rather than just being a generic CV that tries to cover everything. For example, I mean, I'll exaggerate it a little bit, but if you're going for a carpenter's job, then the employer isn't particularly interested in a microbiology degree or something like that. So, having that on your, having a large section about microbiology on your CV, sort of wouldn't really help you in the job, and at best the employer would ignore it, or at worst they'd assume that you're overqualified. So whilst it's useful to have a generic CV, you want to ideally you want to be tailoring it to the opportunity that you're applying for. Be careful with that, Lizard Soul. The job you'll be applying for, that's where you have to think laterally. Okay, so you've just said you've got experience of helping your father out, fetching tools, cleaning, etc. Okay, that is an example of working in a team. Okay, two of you are working to an objective. Okay, one person's doing something, employing one set of skills, another person is employing a different set of skills. So, and that, I mean, that is just an example like that. So, let's say something else. You've watched a lot of Twitch channels, for example. Okay, so you have some experience of video presentation. Okay, so you've got an idea of what people like to watch. You've seen what the popular channels are, for example. So you've got an idea of different styles. That might have some relevance to something about a job that you're doing. If the job is a public-facing one, for example, you've got some experience of understanding what sort of things people say. You've got some experience of listening to different accents and languages and things like that. So, not Yeah, you say, and that's as you just said there. You just said no, but you have got that experience. You just have to think of it in a different way. Yeah, it's there's a lot of stuff like that. If you go to some interviews, they don't expect you to be a perfect fit, but what they expect you to do is understand what what you might need to learn, or what you could bring to it from your other experiences. And that's the key thing, where you now understand. For example, you could say, yes, you've got experience of working in a team, and you can describe how you worked in a team, and what how did that help your father when you were doing those things. It made the team more productive because he could do something else while you were doing that. And so, whatever other job it is, you've got an understanding of what teamwork does for a team, and what you can, your contribution can help that team achieve. So don't discount what you've got or what you have done as being not relevant. Think about it in the terms of not what you've actually done, but what are the skills it shows. And somebody who can, in a lot of jobs, I won't say all of them because I have a lot of experience, but somebody who can say, well, I haven't done this, but what I have done is this, and that relates to what you're asking for in these ways. Tells an employer all sorts of things about you. It tells them that you've thought about the job. It tells them that you're able to bring relevant experience, even if it's not the same thing. And so but anyway, there you go. That's in English, that's my 2 pence worth. 5 cents or pennies worth, or all sorts of other currencies are involved, but don't sell yourself short. You've now it doesn't have to be work experiences though, it is experience. Okay, don't forget, if you're writing a CV for a specific role, specific job, then it could be experience that is valuable to you. Okay, I don't know what it might be or what the job might be in that respect, but it is something which might have some relevance. I don't know, let me make something up. Teaching assistant, for example. Okay, so a teaching assistant. So what does a teaching assistant do? They help out the teacher. They need to have some skill in presenting things to the children, and they need to to have some understanding of teaching. Okay. So you've watched Twitch Creative, you watch people doing things like I'm carving this, and you've watched how I explain what I'm doing, and you might have watched other people explain what they're doing. And so what you've got there is you've experienced you've watched different styles of teaching, and you'll have some thoughts about what you've liked or what you haven't liked about the people that you've watched. And so when if you were to go for a job as a teaching assistant, then you'd be able to describe what it is about certain teaching styles that you like or you didn't like, and how you think that you would do something like that based on what you've watched. Now, I totally made that up. I don't know if it actually would be relevant at all, but that's just how you think about it. And it doesn't have to be job experience. Employers are quite happy to consider experience which is outside of work. And in fact, some of them would like that. Some of them would like some of the outside experiences better than they'd like job experiences. Because if you do something as a hobby, you've got more commitment to that than somebody who does it as a job. That's just an example. So don't when somebody asks you for your experience, don't necessarily think, or even if they ask you for work experience, you can still say those things. Right, Bad Wolf Peach 88, welcome to the stream this afternoon. Welcome to the studio. It's nice of you to join. Thank you very much. If I understood what you just said, you say this is cool. Thank you very much for that. I would prefer if you would speak English, though. I think you're asking if I speak Austrian, but if that's what you're asking, I don't. Unfortunately, I only speak English, and I would much prefer that you do the same if you can. Lizard Soul, don't try stuffing as much into a CV as you can get away with. Think of the most important things. The job of a CV is to get you an interview. That's it. Once you've got the interview, you can then talk, and you can say what you want to say then, and add all the fancy bits. The interview is the job is just the CV is just to get you an interview. Rihanna DeWitt 2001, you're back from camping. I hope you enjoyed it. Camping as in a tent, or camping as in a caravan, or as in something else? Laser, okay, no problem. Okay, lurking there. Oh, okay. Am I English or Australia? I've got completely the wrong continent, didn't I? I'm in the UK. I'm English. Austrian. Yeah. Very slightly, a few miles apart. Caravan and tent. Okay, I've not been in either for about 30 years. I used to do a lot of both, actually. Caravans and tents. Yes, that's right, Lizard Cell. That's exactly what it's for. It's to get them interested enough in you to call you in for the interview. It's not to get you the job, because very rarely will an employer just employ somebody straight from a CV. It's to get them interested, and then they'll call you in for an interview, and it's then that they will make their decision. So your CV has got to excite them. So some of the things on a CV, make sure it's spelt correctly, and the grammar makes sense if you can. I know if you're going on switching languages, it can be difficult, but spelling and grammar are extremely important things in a CV. Okay. I can picture the gentleman that you're talking about, Bad Wolf Peach 88. I for the life of me cannot remember his name. I'm thinking I wouldn't sound like him at all, but there again, you know, how I sound to you is different to how I sound to myself. Okay, I don't mind that. Don't mind that. That makes me a wizard. Okay, so that bone's okay. That one wants to be carved down a little bit more. It's not quite as deep as I want it there. I've forgotten the actor's name. That's better. And that probably means I need to continue this a little bit more into there. Okay, this is hard. I'm trying to remove a ridge in the middle between the two bones here. When you're trying to do it with a small chisel, what's happening is the chisel is trying to fall off the ridge, where I'm trying to keep it slap bang on it, so I carve the ridge away, which is interesting. Having to hold the chisel really fairly tightly in order to persuade it to go exactly where I want it to go. Okay. Similar vocals. Okay, Bad Wolf. That's not Bad Wolf pt18. That's not. I don't have a problem. I'm wondering where where your name comes from, because of course Bad Wolf sort of seems like Doctor Who, and Peach seems like a computer game. So. Is it a combination of those two, or is it just something for some other reason? That's a good idea, Lizard Cell. Get someone else to check it, and if you're writing in English, somebody who is English would help a lot. No problem, Rihanna DeWitt. Shadow Mark 3, good afternoon. Welcome to the studio. I guess you've lurked in the stream before. Or are you just seeing it from for the first time? But thank you very much. Bad Wolf Peach. Yes, look for basswood. In America it gets called bass. B-A-S-S, wood. I was right then, Doctor Who and Princess... well, Princess Peach. I knew it was Peach, and I couldn't remember which game it was from, but... Okay, Shadow Mark. Third time. Thank you for coming back again. How long does it take to carve something like this? We've done about 20 hours, 20 to 30 hours so far on this. There's going to... we're probably going to end up about 35 by the time we've finished. Now, some of that is... I'm not very experienced at carving. and it is quite a complex piece to do. And there's some very tight spaces involved in here. There was a lot of I'll describe it as waste wood around the outsides here to get rid of, which I did using the hand chisels. If I was trying to do this with speed, I'd have used some power tools around the outside to get rid of things. I've also made quite a few mistakes which I had to correct, so that took time, which if I hadn't made them obviously would have saved 5-6 hours of time. So do I have a favourite doctor? Not really. I think everybody probably remembers their first doctor, the one that was current at the time that they were around. Or, well, for those of us who are old enough to watch the first run, you kind of always remember the first doctor, I think. Whereas, but do I have a favourite one? Not specifically. They're all different. Usually, with every regeneration, it takes a few episodes to get used to the new actor, and then they're okay. Yeah, Tom was fun. The one that was around when I first saw it was John Pertwee. So I kind of got used to his style, but then they've all been great actors, and of course we've just got the new one, Peter Capaldi, which is completely different again, and that's taken a little bit of getting used to. I remember the goodies as well. Tim Brooke Taylor, Bill Oddie, and the other one whose name escapes me at the moment. Graham, yeah. I've just since you mentioned the goodies, I've been on the verge of saying that fella's name 3 or 4 times, but I just can't get it. He was a medical doctor as well. That's the one thing I always remember about him. And I cannot Graham. It'll come to me at sort of 2 o'clock in the morning one morning, and that'll be Graham Gardner. That's the one. Thank you, Eddie Folguy, and thank you to your wife, Graham Gardner, Dr. Graham Gardner. An example of totally silly British humour. Yeah, it was interesting and funny at the time. I think humour goes through different cycles. I'm not particularly sure I'd find it funny these days, but it certainly was back then. The episode I particularly remember, for I'm not quite sure why, but the one I always remember is the kitten and the post office tower in the UK. The attack of the foot. I'm going to say it's something like the attack of the 40-foot kitten, but it was somewhat bigger than that, or meant to be. That wing bone's still a bit thick for what I want, but we'll deal with that in a little while. Yeah, oh yes. Yeah, that's true. It was in the opening sequence. That one I don't remember, Shadow Mark 3. It sounds like it's possibly one that was done around about the time of the fishing, the fishing problems, the Atlantic fishing problems. But I don't remember the episode at all. You might have to remember that I watched these when they were broadcast for the first time. not the repeats that maybe is what you're watching. But there again, obviously I don't know how old you are, but so excuse me if you also saw them around about that time. I'm rounding off these bones, so I'm shaving very small slivers of wood off, and so the technique is kind of like taking a square piece of wood, you shave the corners off so you turn it into an 8-sided piece of wood from a 4-sided one. Then you shave those corners off, which probably gives you about 16 sides. Then you shave those corners off so you get 32, and then gradually, the more the corners you shade off, the more round it becomes. And I'm just rounding it off. Right, I'm not exactly counting how many sides I'm creating. It's just I just keep, if I see a corner, I shave the corner off until it feels round. I'm not about to sort of check it with a gauge or anything. It's not particularly that important for it to be that exact. As long as it sort of looks round and sort of feels round, so you run your finger over it. Quite a lot of time when you're carving, your touch can help quite a bit in telling you where things are. So I mean, whilst I can see this has got a high spot in the middle, I can feel it. I can feel this one, which I can hardly see, has one just there, because I can feel like a triangular pyramid shape. I can feel these, and they are, you know, roughly round. There's a bump just there, just in that position here, which isn't particularly of concern to me, but I'll just do a little bit of shaving in that area. It's not really important that it doesn't have a bump even in this particular application. Now I've got a flat space and a flat spot. It really depends just on what the intention is of the piece and whether actually anybody's going to run their fingers over it. If it's meant to be sort of displayed behind a glass case and nobody's going to touch it, then it's more what it looks like than what it feels like. If I was carving something like this, which I don't know, was going to go on the front of a fireplace, for example, you're going to expect people to touch it, so you'll want it to feel nice. Right, I have sort of made a mistake here with this bone, which I'll explain in just a moment. What I've done is there's a bone here as well, and what I should actually have done is continue this one over into the palm of the hand, and this one would sort of go underneath it. I've kind of not quite done that, so I might see if we can just change the angle of this bone a little bit so it is doing that sort of thing. I'm describing this dragon as a he because I'm doing I'm carving a particular dragon from an Anne McCaffrey series of books called describing a world called Pern, and the reference picture in the bottom left is drawn by an artist called Michael Wheland, who's an artist illustrator, and he has illustrated the front covers of quite a few of Anne McCaffrey's books. He was her favourite illustrator because he was able to capture the image of the dragon that she had in her mind that they should look like. She didn't want the dragons to be all sort of teeth and claws and scales and fire breathing. They are fire breathing dragons, but they were meant to be imposing but not intimidating, and Michael Wheland was able to capture the essence of what she was after. And I happen to like the way he draws them, so this is done in that same style. Now this particular dragon, which is the one in the drawing, is a white dragon. Now the white dragon is unique. There is only one of them in all of the books. There's a story behind how it comes, the white dragon comes about, but there is only one, and that's this one. Therefore I know what the dragon's name is, and the dragon chooses its own name, and this one is called Ruth, but it's a male dragon. In case you're familiar with Ruth normally being a female name. So that's why I keep referring to him as a he. Okay, let's see if I can do something about the mistake I created down here. And that one's got a flat spot on it, so no, gotta go the other way. I'm taking absolutely tiny slivers off here. So if you were looking for wood flying all over the place from chiseling, I'm sorry. This is very delicate chiseling, is this? Okay, a bit more around there. sometimes what can help if you're doing things like this is, and you're not, you know, because it can be hard to see what you're doing, just taking a pencil and just, you know, just colouring in the surface, if you like that, can help you see, because as you shave the wood, I'm trying to do really carefully here, you effectively just shave off the marks that you've made, and so you can tell where you've been, so to speak. Yeah, that'll do for now. Right, and now I want to carve a similar rounded edge on this bone here as well. Like any sort of art form, with carving, as well as well, as I say, quite a few other art forms, especially what is relatively low resolution art forms, because carving is quite low resolution. You have to sometimes look at a piece and decide what details you're going to try and put in, and which details you're not going to bother with because you just can't achieve them. And that can be half the battle with carving, is trying not to put too much detail in. Depending on the wood, certain woods won't support a lot of detail. Basswood here, or European lime, isn't too bad in that respect. It will take some quite nice sharp corners and edges. Which can help with detail, but also you have to remember that you've got to do it with a chisel or a knife or whatever tool you've got. It's not like on a computer where you can just zoom in and you know, use something the size of a breakfast spoon to just dot a pixel in. You can't do that when you're carving. Okay, we've got a half rounded shape there. Let's round this one off, and then I'm going to sort of get inside and round the other part of the bone off. Okay, so we've created a shape there. Let's see if I can get in. Yeah, it's going to be an awkward one because I've got to carve the opposite way. The grain of the wood dictates the directions that you can carve in. You've got some leeway on that, especially with the sharper the tool that you've got will help enormously. If you've got a really sharp tool, you can sometimes carve in directions that would not normally be advisable. Now, I don't normally use a chisel as a scraper, but in this particular case I'm going to. Now, scraping wood is a way of smoothing it out. Generally speaking, you'd use a separate tool. You wouldn't use a chisel for this. It tends to disrupt the sharpness of the chisel, because you're affecting the point or the edge by doing this. You're causing the edge of the chisel to actually bend in a direction that's not suitable for carving afterwards. I'm doing it here mainly because I don't really have a lot of space to get in. So having done this, what I'll do is I'll sharpen the chisel, which will restore that edge. Right, I need to get in there with a different chisel as well. So this is mainly just a leather strop. It's got some polishing compound on it. And even polishing it creates that bends that edge over, so dragging it backwards on the other side straightens it out. So now I've got to do is try and carve in there. Right in the edge, right in the Okay, that's about as much as I can do there. What I'd need to do is tip the piece up on its side so that I can see to do any more than I've just done. And I've just shaved something I didn't want to, so I just need to correct that. Well, there we go. Let's just do down the end of the finger here. Okay, now go back to the finger. That was what I was doing originally. Sorry if you're having problems seeing this, but it's an awkward area for me to get into. It's a little bit pointy is the finger, sort of pyramid shaped. There we go, that'll do. And I mentioned earlier about Boss Gaming 2004. Thank you very much for following the studio. That is most excellent of you. Thank you very much. I do appreciate you doing that. I did mention earlier about cutting towards myself and people sometimes getting a little bit nervous about me doing that, even though it's quite safe to do. You might see me cleaning the blade off like this as well, and that also gives people a very peculiar feeling. I would say it is actually very safe to do it this way. I wouldn't do it in the other direction. because I move my fingers away from the blade, there's nothing for it to cut. A blade cuts because you're pushing into the sharp edge or you're slicing across the sharp edge. So if I'm doing that, I'm going completely away from the cutting edge. If I did it that way or that way, I'd be likely to cut myself, but that's quite safe. Boss Gaming, thank you very much for saying that. That is very kind of you. Naozi, do I ever play video games? Yes, but not on stream. I don't play too many. I play 4 reasonably consistently. That would be Farming Simulator, Train Simulator, Euro Truck Simulator. Maybe there's a pattern coming here. And Minecraft. I occasionally play the London Underground Simulator, but apart from that, it tends to be adventure games. So anything like Myst, and the Cyan games like that. That sort of adventure game is what I play. You should sell art online. Put a link in the info room of your page. Yeah, well, I'm quite happy to sell some of the pieces. Most of what's been done on stream so far has been personal things. So the pussycats, for example. I don't know if you've seen the pyrographic pussycats. These are 2 of our cats. So these are for me. Well, actually, they're for my wife. They're a present for my wife. So we've got this cat here, which is Felix. We have this cat here, which is Junior. So these are are things that are not for sale. But other things might well be. I mean, things like the Punchcraft stuff. So this particular piece wouldn't be for sale, but I'd be quite happy to do another one, for example, to sell if somebody was interested in buying one. But yes, these are kind of not really the kind of things that you just do speculatively, really. I suppose something like a train maybe, or because they make good pictures, or maybe even I suppose some of the pyrographic things like the train I was doing there might well be. But the kind of the problem with them is they take such a long time to do. I mean, the pussycats are going on for 10 hours each. That Punchcraft I just shown, that's going on for 10 hours. So there's quite a bit of sort of time involved in creating them. So, and the only time I've got available is to do that sort of thing on stream. So doing lots of them to sell in a shop, so to speak, is quite difficult. But if somebody wanted a particular piece or something done in a particular style, then yeah, I'd certainly consider it. And as I'm sure I'm going to build up lots of pieces because I'm doing so many now on stream, then yes, that's something I intend to do. At least maybe either put stuff on DeviantArt, create a website, or potentially even something like an Etsy shop. I could always do something like that as well for the pieces that I am willing to sell. But thank you for the suggestion. Yes, it is something that's under consideration. Okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. That bone hasn't been done, so let's just do this bone here. Do it the other way. Now this wing tip, this wing finger, and the one to the right of it really require that I cut away some waste wood down this side here. Same on this one. I'm not going to do that at this stage because this wood is a relatively fragile wood in small pieces like this would be, and if I carve this down here now, chances are I'd break this off without well, you know, before I finished, and obviously I don't really want to do that, so what I'm going to do is leave that extra width in place, and possibly at the very last minute, so to speak, when it's all done, I'll remove some of that excess wood that's supporting it, and then there's no, you know, there's a lot less chance of accidentally cracking off that finger. Same on this one here. It'll be quite hard to do it even when I'm finished, to carve that off without actually cracking it off, because even the pressure of the chisel just going down can be enough to crack the wood. Right, that needs some more work done on it. This definitely needs more work. Well, the whole wing membranes need more work. I'm going to just take some of this wood away. At the moment, this here is bulging upwards. Ultimately, I want it to bulge downwards. What I'm just doing for the moment is just level it out. Ella Lynch, thank you very much for following the studio this afternoon. That is most fantastic of you. I do appreciate you doing that, and I'm glad you're enjoying what you're looking at. It is not the only art form we do, but it is the one we're currently doing. We, that's the royal we, in other words, just me. There's only me on this here channel. But we do other things as well: pyrography, scraper board, pyrography, scraper board, punchcraft, carving, and I do have some fuse beads to try and another art form which I can't reveal at the moment, but we'll be having a go at again later on. So I kind of cover a range or a variety of things. We tend to do them sequentially, one after the other, rather than all at once. So once this piece is actually finished, I'll then move on to another craft, which at the moment I think is possibly pyrography is the next one, but that won't be for quite a while. There's probably another 10 or 15 hours in this piece at the moment. And generally speaking, I'm only doing, whilst I stream 7 nights a week, it's only for a couple of hours a night. Right, I don't want to nick the bones, so I just need to be careful in this area here. I'm just trying to remove some carving lines which are down there, just right down here in the corner. Right, and I've got to do them on the other side as well. There we go. That wing bone there actually needs a bit more work done on it. Just that one bone there. It's flat at the top, which is not too bad, but this bottom edge here, the bottom of the bone here isn't round. I think I probably need to make it a little bit more deeper. And establish a little bit more shape around here where it comes into the hand. But that is going to be for a little bit later on. Ella Lynch, you're amazing at what you do. Thank you very much. That's certainly a nice statement for the ego, is that one. Thank you. But yes, thank you. I try to be, shall we say? Dear, but I do enjoy what I'm doing, which makes a big difference, of course. But unfortunately, we're coming up. In fact, we're coming up to 20 to 6. and it's time I thought about having something to eat. 20 to 6 in the UK. So I've been streaming now for 2 hours and 40 minutes. So I'm going to take a break. Sorry to those of you who may have just joined, but I need to take just a rest, have a drink, get some food, and then I will be back again in about, well, what time is it now? I say 20. So in about 2 hours and 20 minutes. I will be back again, where we will continue with this, do some more work on this wing, and move over onto the other one before doing other bits. But it's progressing. It's progressing quite nicely. I'm pleased with it as it stands at the moment. So thank you all for watching. If you are watching and would like to be notified when I go live again, please push the follow button. And if you don't actually trust that Twitch will tell you when I go live again, which seems to happen quite a bit, you are of course welcome to follow me on Twitter. I am at Zaraganart, and the details are below the stream window down there somewhere. Hopefully, of course, Twitter is better at telling you when I go live. I don't tweet anything else but going live, so you're not going to be inundated if you choose to follow me in that way. Normally, I would stream 7 nights a week from about 8 PM in the UK. That's 1900 hours GMT. Or as I say, whatever time it is on your clock now, at about 2 hours 20 minutes, that's when I normally stream. I will be streaming this evening. I don't know about tomorrow night, but I will not be streaming for 2 weeks. From Tuesday I have to go away, and I don't have access to the internet in order to be able to stream where I'm going to be at. So I'm afraid I'll be taking a short break for a while, but I hope to see you on this evening's stream and again in the future. Thank you all very much.